Hello everybody, welcome back to Ghostly French Toast, and today we're doing a, not lore video, but a Dark Souls 2 video, and not a Dark Souls 2 lore video. Over the last couple weeks, I've seen a lot of people coming out and defending Dark Souls 2 as they should, because Dark Souls 2 is, honestly, it's not the worst From Software game as people like to say. I actually think it's one of the better ones. It's in my top four. I really enjoy Dark Souls 2 a lot. So, enough dialing around, let's dive on in. So, main reasons against it, where you had the big Joseph Anderson video where it was talking about bad design, bad levels, bad graphics, bad bosses, and ganks. That's the one thing I will agree. I will never forget Iron Keep's gank. Iron Keep's gank in Scholar of the First Scene is absolutely devious. Is a devious thing. Going off the bad graphics as well, where for the time, like you have where the big argument was you have Modern Warfare. This came out in 2013. Where you have the big arguments for like, oh yes, these higher quality. I'm like, I would argue that this is more of an aesthetic. It's Dark Souls has never been known for its design when it comes to gameplay over gameplay itself. So I think having the quality, and it was supposed to be made to come out on 360. Not looking at like updated version where that was kind of the time where the Xbox One was starting to come out. It was made for an early gen 360. So I think that's always something to always like take note of, because it wasn't really made for this generation, it was made for older. So that's why talk about the graphics. We'll talk about the bosses later, because I actually think the boss quality is, I would compare it to Elden Ring in a weird way. As also, Scholar's First Sin is the definitive edition, and that's the one that I've played. I've never played the original Dark Souls 2. So this is the one that I always consider when it comes to the game itself. It addresses a lot of the problems. Definitive edition fixes enemy layout, and that's the big thing. Where there was a lot of problems with enemy layout in the first game, and it addresses a lot of problems and also goes through and fixes them. So it's cool. Not Iron Keep though. R.I.P. Iron Keep. Fuck Iron Keep. All my homies hate Iron Keep. Build variety is one of the biggest things that I think Dark Souls 2 does very well. Many classes and many varieties, whether that be hexes or pyromancy, flame. There's so much diversity in the game. And I think one of the big things, there's many different weapons, whether that be reskins of weapons that have different stats. I think that's a great thing built within different stats and different status effects. I think that's an awesome thing that should have been carried over to Elden Ring. Because you have a lot of weapons that don't really make sense. Instead, give them certain status effects where they have that affinity and reason to be there. And bosses always have soul weapons, and I think that's a great thing, where they always at least have two, whether it be a spell or a weapon, or just weapons. And I think that's just an awesome thing. I think there's always should be a reward for beating a boss, like a remembrance boss, I would say, in Elden Ring. But it's always a nice feature, and it expands a lot of the variety where you have these, because like, yes, there's these legendary armaments, whatever, but I think having more specific boss weapons incentivizes more build variety, because a lot of people going into the game, they'll use the boss weapon because seems like the best weapon to use, which is completely reasonable. Fusion weapons, as stated before, those weapons that are from the Scholar of the First Sin specifically, but it's cool. Good boss structure. What I mean by that, looking at bosses, there's many different bosses. There's not very, like, of course you got the Twin Dragon Riders, you got all that, and you have the horrible ganks fights. Don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of boss fights with a lot of different things going on in the boss fight. It's not Elden Ring where you stick the same enemy over and over again, and I think that's one thing that not many people when comparing the two games, because most people compare Elden Ring to Dark Souls 2 in a way, because it's that kind of design, that layout. Elden Ring has a lot of repeat bosses, where Dark Souls 2 innovates, like having bosses but similar bosses, but they add different things to those bosses, which I think is an awesome structure. And yes, the boss quality isn't that good, but you also got to consider the game that's coming from. It's not an Elden Ring, so it's a very hard thing to compare to, if that makes any sense. Yes, reused but different kinds of bosses. Elden Ring problem. DLCs are absolutely peak. Some of the best level layouts from Software has ever made. I will die by that. Sunken City is great. Probably one of my personal favorite. Fume Tower is one of my favorite levels. Not Iron Keep, no. Fume Tower is such a good, well-designed level, I think. And then you have a Lamb Moist, which I think a Lamb Moist is very cool. It's an ice city right above Chaos. It's awesome. Some of the best parts of the game, such a great atmosphere too, where you have the, I think Broom Tower does that very well, or whereas you get down to fight Fume Knight, it gets darker and darker, and less enemies are really there. You have bigger enemies, don't get me wrong, but you have less enemies overall because it's the bottom of the tower. No one should be there. And great bosses, you have Sirloin, you have Ivory King. It's a great thing overall. Design and atmosphere. DLCs have great atmosphere as a whole, as discussed earlier. The gutter's good. I don't like when people are like, oh yes, the gutter's absolutely awful. When it comes to design, I think the gutter's actually very, like, it gets the idea across, where I think a lot of people confuse atmosphere with level design. Where atmosphere, you're supposed to fucking hate yourself. Like, and that's what the gutter does very well. And then you have Dragonlight Castle, this rainy castle, where automatons kind of replace soldiers, as we learn in Vendrick's lore. Yes, there's bad level connection. I won't defend that. The Iron Keep connection is kind of devious. It's just me dogging on Iron Keep at this rate, to be honest. Area progression. The 4 starting passes are very similar that let you choose, so it's very similar to Dark Souls 1 idea. And I think one of the big things that Dark Souls 2 doesn't do well is introduce those bosses. And I think that's why a lot of people like Dark Souls 1 structure over, where there's these layouts, there's a goal. There's not really a goal in mind with Dark Souls 2 besides finding these great lords. I wish they did give more direction. Another thing is a different game than Dark Souls 1. You can't really, you can compare it, but you also got to go in mind, it's a different game that can have different ideas and different goals. DLCs make up for the linearness, where they have a lot of variety on where you can go, what you can do, which is awesome. Personal thoughts though, I love DS2. Yes, there's bad stuff, but there's also decent stuff. But there's a lot of good going on, and people just dog on it, not gonna lie. Even though they haven't even played the game, just because I think the negative connotation around Dark Souls 2. But I'm glad it's changing, and I'm glad more people are coming in like, hey, this is actually a pretty solid game. But yeah, that's it for this time. I will see you guys next time on Ghostly French Toast.